All right. You've heard me talk about this economist, Hudson, teaches in Missouri. Well, so it occurred to me the other day because I was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says that Seattle can't just arrest people or throw people off the sidewalk for sleeping on the sidewalk if they ain't got any place else to go. Well, so here's the thing. Whatever land is under that sidewalk, we took it from somebody. Now, if you're in California, we took it from the Mexicans. The Mexicans, they took it from the Indians. The Indians, they took it from whichever Indians were there before they were. So, land ownership, if you think of land ownership as private ownership, it's based on taking, it's based on violence, and then the keeping of it is therefore violent. That's why the police are out there telling people they can't sleep on the sidewalk. They got guns, they got tasers. It's an act of violence and force to tell people you can't use the sidewalk that way. And if these homeless people come and camp on me here at Star Lake, I will call the sheriff, and the sheriff will come out with his guns and his tasers and make them get off my property, because the enforcement of my property is done with force and violence. The original ownership of it was taken by force. So if you look at the root of a thing, then whatever the root was, the plant that comes from it is that root. So if the root of land ownership is violence and force, then violence and force will always be present in it. I was thinking about, I was looking at ancient Rome, and the founding myth of ancient Rome is Romulus and Remus. So you got these two brothers, and they form this community, and I think one's on one hill and one's on another hill, and eventually one of the brothers kills the other brother. So that sense of potential fratricide remains through Roman history. And so, civil war over and over again, especially in the Roman Republic, not so much in the Empire, because once you get a dictator in place, he can quell. Okay, now our founding myth is that a group of hardy souls that were willing to persevere through long, hungry winters with no ammunition and no clothing, etc., threw off the chains and yoke of an oppressor. That's our founding myth. Well, that's then the root of our society, and the tree that comes out of that root is always celebrating resistance against oppression. So you got Colin Kaepernick, and I don't know, half the country is going, Yahoo, Colin. The other half of the country is saying, well, hey, what about Tillman? We should be celebrating Tillman's sacrifice, going over there to Afghanistan to help those poor Afghanis throw off the yoke of tyranny of the Taliban. But at any rate, what we celebrate is the resistance of tyrannical authority because of our founding myth. All right, so the foundation of private ownership is violence. So what if all land, all natural resources were owned by all of us? It was owned by the public. Then, so this property that I have here, I would lease it from you and me. And so the oil down there in Texas, instead of it belonging to the descendants of whatever rough and ready Texans stole it from the Mexicans, and him collecting rent every year for his oil land, what if we all owned that oil land and then he paid us rent to extract the oil? Then the root of that is not violent holding. The root of it is communal ownership. Well, then you got this guy, in Nevada that's running cattle on BLM land, and he won't pay the rent on it. I can't remember his name. I think he's even a Mormon. But, it's BLM land. It's owned by all of us, and the son of a bitch won't pay us our rent for running cattle on our land. Well, what are we going to do about that? But I would suggest that the reason is that he's inside this culture of that land ownership is taken and held by force. And he's doing that, isn't he? He took it and he's holding it with a rifle, and his sons too. So that's what you got to think about today.